Hey, welcome back to the Positive Side Podcast. Glad you're tuning in. This is one of my favorite episodes of all time because I have my favorite guest of all time, Elyse Archer. Elyse, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jeremy. This just makes my heart happy. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited too. And you know what? I thought about this before we jumped on, and we used to talk every single day.
I know.
What happened to us?
It's wild. And
I
now you've
mean,
got like this legit official setup. Like
oh, yeah.
yeah,
I
a
mean, to
lot.
the moon. The positive
I
side is
love
going
it.
to the moon. It's great.
It is. Claim it. I love it. I know. I miss our chats. I feel like we talked about business stuff, but just like life stuff and all
Absolutely.
the things, and a lot has happened since then. So I'm an open book. So wherever
Well,
you want to go with
the
this.
reason I want to go with this, the reason I bring that up first of all is because obviously life gets extremely busy, and we got all kinds of things going on today. Gosh, I mean, I was with Vincent and doing yard work on my day off. I'm doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I had phone calls this morning, and then but what happens, and unfortunately, is we some of the relationships that are very very important to us seem to go to the wayside. So my question to you is, being one of the busiest people in the world. Running your own business, she sells. We're going to get into that here in a little bit, and obviously having a new baby, and you're married to the man, the myth, the legend, old Jaybird. I mean, you've got a lot of stuff going on. How do you manage all of that time, and how do you make time for friendships and friends and free time?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. So I'll share with you. So my perspective used to be all work. I so hung my value up in work and how much money I made. And it's funny because I feel like that's still a growth opportunity for me. Like I just got off a coaching call with my coach about 2 hours ago. And that was literally, it was the theme again. It was like, Elyse, you're getting your value cut up in your work and how much money you make. So my natural tendency is to find my value in sitting in front of the laptop and cranking out like sales calls and new prospects and making money and all that. So I love this question because for so long, I didn't really value other stuff at the same level. And I think, man, so many things change us as we go. I mean, for me, it's been just going through career pivots, which and which we
Oh
can
yeah.
absolutely talk about, where like I felt like I realized that there's nothing that's really certain in life except for you and owning your worth, and then also really valuing cultivating the relationships and the people around you who support you through thick and thin. So I've come to value that so much over the years. I think for me, so one of the phrases one of my mentors used that I love is busy is boring. Because I used to say, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. And now it's like, no, I'm not so busy. I have plenty of time for everything. I have just as much time as Elon Musk and Oprah. And right before I went on maternity leave, I was working like 60, 70-hour weeks, and being a solopreneur, I had to look at my time and say, mama can't work 60 to 70-hour weeks
Yeah,
right after giving birth.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
how do I streamline this? So I actually looked at everything I was doing, and I found that there was like 8 hours of stuff a week that actually made me money. And I gave myself the permission to stop doing the stuff that didn't actually bring in revenue for my business, and then to allow myself to enjoy that sweet baby boy and my husband and relationship. So for me, this is like the nerd in me. I have a little KPI checker every day. And one of them is like, did I appreciate someone? Did I text or call a friend? Because that just helps me like remember
Yeah.
to always prioritize it. But I know on the days when I do, I feel so much better. So yeah, I don't know if that was a clear answer to your
Well, I,
question,
I don't know
but
if it is, but it makes a
that's
lot
how
of
I do it.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that before, like when we met, it was just super Elise, just crushing phones, hammering it out, and you're one of the most talented salespeople I've ever met in my life, and you had all these other things going on, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show was how that mind shift switched. Now, is I guess is it different than what it was? I would assume it is because now you have a baby. And how did your perspective change? Because what's interesting with this podcast is that I found out the other day that I think it's like 68% my listeners are women, which is
Interesting.
fascinating. And I've got friends that one of my friends, Jamie Langham, much love to Jamie.
Yeah.
She's working a lot of hours. Now she's cut her hours back. She's got 3 kids, and you two are like these super women that do that. And for all women out there listening that may be stressed out, what are some of the things that you rely on to really decompress at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And how does that help you? And where does that come up? Where does that show up in your life?
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because I'm so in this journey right now. Um, but what I have learned about just life in general is you don't get what you want, you get what you are and what you think you deserve. Like that's, so if we talk about like manifestation, and that's like a big piece of actually what I teach my clients is how to attract clients in, how to be the woman who naturally has 10K months, 20K months, 100K months, whatever it is she's going for. And the universe will only give you what you think you deserve. That's it. So part of, for me, why I was grinding so hard for so many years was I didn't feel worthy. There was a part of me that didn't feel worthy and felt like I had to work really hard for what I wanted. And I think that's conditioning in our society. So many of my clients that I talk to, like that's their, literally all day long, I have these calls now where they're like, but if I, if I don't like burn the candle at both ends and work really, really hard, I'm not going to get what I want. And it's like, no, when you up level your self-worth, that's actually when everything shifts for you. So for me, part of my journey, and I now teach my clients too, is like when I came at my business from an angle of hustle and grind and work really hard and yada yada, my income level was like $10,000 to $15,000 months, and it was just like consistently at that level for years. When I started doing the inner work to believe that I was worth more, and to realize that me just being me and showing up confidently would also attract the right clients in 6 weeks, I went from 10K months to 120K month. It's like that. So it's like the secret sauce that we're not taught that actually makes all the difference, because when you're hustling and grinding and push, it is for men or women, it's not actually true. It's not actually how it works, but we do that because we think we have to bring in a certain amount of money. So we can unpack that however you want, but that's what I'm really lit up about right now.
Well, it's interesting because you're obviously I follow you on all social media. I follow you on Instagram,
Yeah.
Facebook, I mean, and I love your social media. You just look so much happier now than you ever have ever. And I love that. I love your authenticity of the videos that you put out there. Some of them it's Elyse with no makeup. Some of it's Elyse dancing with the baby. And then sometimes you bring Jason in, which I don't know if you should bring Jason in. I don't know if that's gonna.
They always get the best engagement. I tell you, Jason's like my social media superstar. Like if
Oh,
I want a video to do well, just bring him or the baby. It's like one or the other. People don't really want to see me. They want to see Jason and the baby. So I'll bring him in.
Yeah, we've seen you enough, Elyse. Bring the
Yeah,
baby. All right?
we're tired of you. Bring in someone else.
One of the things that, and I love your website, it looks beautiful, but one of the things that just jumped out at me was Get My Life Changing Guide, how to create a 6-figure morning routine. I want to talk about that. How did you come up with that? And I guess let's just talk about that a little bit. What is a 6-figure morning routine?
Yeah. So the reason I picked 6-figure, and that's really the income threshold that I'm kind of known for helping women hit quickly, because for me, I remember when I first went into sales, I was like, if I can just make 6 figures, life will be good and easy. And I think for a lot of us, right? And 6 figures is nothing to sneeze at. It's a lot of money. Like it's great, right? It creates freedom. It creates opportunity. It creates some breathing room in your space. I think often when you get there, you're like, oh, this is good, but I require more for the life I want to live. And that's cool too. But I'm really passionate about helping people get to that first 6-figure mark, because I think once you do that, you kind of realize, oh, I can rinse and repeat and do this again and go to new levels. So that's what I'm passionate about income wise. But again, to me, the part of how to have not just success, but sustainable success is to not just do the actions that you think are going to get you to where you want to go, but to actually become the person who naturally and easily makes the money you want to make, has the clients you want to work with, excels at sales. And so I'm really about shifting more of like the inner game, the inner, just the inner being, because when you have the idea, like part of how I made that big shift was I started to take on the identity of a 7-figure business owner before it ever happened. And so with your morning routine, that's, this, you preach this, like I learned a lot of morning routine stuff from you and from your book. So I love it. But that's where you are really that's where you're cultivating your identity. Because in the morning, your brain's not so resistant to affirmations, to visualization and all that stuff that's so critical to shifting your identity to be the person who brings in 6 figures or does whatever your goals are.
Walk me through a normal day. What time do you wake up in the morning?
Yeah. So I'm an early bird. I'm like a 4 a.m. type of girl. I like that. So my favorite thing in the world, aside from now spending time with Jack, is getting up early, having my coffee and reading my book. So like right now I'm reading, I love like prosperity, money mindset books. So right now I'm reading a book by Catherine Ponder, The Millionaire from Nazareth, which is an interesting read. It's about Jesus and being a millionaire. And it's fascinating to me. So I get up, I read, I visualize. I'm a big Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you follow him, but
no, I don't.
Amazing. He wrote a book that changed my life called Becoming Supernatural. He studies quantum physics and how it actually, like, we are capable of infinitely more than we think we are. and he studies the science of it. It's so fascinating. So I do his meditations in the morning. And when I do his meditations and visualize, this is part of how you can create powerfully and quickly, is emotionalizing that thing that you want to create in your life. So for me, one of my goals with up leveling my finances was to be able to help my husband go part-time and then eventually retire at work.
Yeah.
So I just told him a couple of weeks ago he could do that. But before that, every morning I was visualizing that conversation and literally getting myself to feeling like crying tears of gratitude for something that hadn't happened yet. And
Sure.
it's that level of deep emotion that I try to get, don't try, but I get myself to most mornings. And if I don't, it's okay too, but around that thing that I want to create next to my life. Then I work out, but workout for me could be like 10 minutes of yoga. I
Yeah.
used to really be intense about it. And now I do what feels good to my body, and shower, time with baby, and then I'm into work. But that morning routine is so critical. I
What
know
time you starting work?
I'm usually starting work around 8. So we've got
Okay.
a nanny who comes. That's another thing with having a baby. Like I decided to cut my hours way down. So most days I work from like 8 until noon, and then I work when he naps, and that's it. And old Elyse would not have thought that was possible to get
Yeah.
everything done and work in that short amount of time.
No.
But she's here from 8 to noon, and somehow somehow it works. It does, because you just learn to say no to stuff that doesn't matter anymore.
Old Elise would have no chance of doing that.
Totally. Yeah. Old Elyse was like desperately trying to please everyone.
It's just so crazy. Like, hearing you talk now and feeling your vibe and your glow. And I look back to a situation when you and I were driving through the Sierra Nevada mountains. And, for whatever reason that sticks out to me. And I look back at that point. That was almost like stressful Elise. I mean,
Mm,
maintaining Elise. And I also felt like, when this is what I love about you, and I've always loved about you, is that your willingness to just really to help. And that's like to help me, but to help people, and you're just honest generosity. And now that you've shifted your mindset, it like before it was almost like blocked.
yeah.
And now I see it's just like wide open, full blast. And I'm just so proud of you. I love it. I love
Mm,
this Elise. I see the
yeah.
glow, I see the fire, and I love every single second of it. So
Thank
you're
you so
awesome.
much.
You
Thank
bet.
you, my friend. Oh man, no, that means the world. That absolutely means the world. And it's interesting too, because we were working together, and it's like you want to have some like level of not letting the people you're working with know if you're struggling with something. And I
Sure.
think it had just become my norm to feel like to have low grade anxiety and stress. And
Yeah.
I didn't even realize there was another way of being. So I didn't even think there was anything wrong per se. But what I've learned is like, no, that's actually not our natural state. That's not how we're
Yeah.
wired. And um, yeah, and it's really cool. Like life can be really good. We can let it be really good and really easy.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
interesting with you
yeah,
because I could see it on that under level with you. And now that I don't want to say it's a darkness, but that shadow or that
yeah.
fog is now gone. It just allows all the greatness and the sun, that light to
Mm,
shine back in, which is super, super powerful.
thank
I want
you.
to talk a little bit more about your schedule. What time do you go to bed?
Well, we're getting deep. Oh, I'm early. I'm pre-geriatric, and I love it. I'm like a grandma. So I'm going to bed at like 9, 8:39. In my ideal world, sometimes I'm in bed by like 7:30. It's fabulous. It's
So,
like zero apologies for it.
well, no. I'm just trying to calculate how many hours of sleep that you get.
I
I
get
listen to the
7. I got to get
podcast.
7. I used to skimp on sleep. I don't do that either. So I get 7 hours.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most crucial things that's really changed my life, and I've focused so hard on it now to get
Yeah.
I've been, it's funny. I went to 8 hours of sleep for about a month, and it was almost too much, and I'm kicked
Yeah.
back down to 6 hours right now. I watch a podcast with Lex Friedman. I don't know if you know who Lex Friedman
Mm-mm.
is. He's I don't know, some kind of nuclear scientist guy, but
Oh,
uh,
cool.
great podcast, and it's very intellectual, and I love those types of podcasts. And he had a guy on talk about sleep, and that's why I was asking what time you get up, what time you go to bed, because I think having that right amount of sleep is so critical to
Yeah.
have your mind thinking correctly.
Oh,
If you don't get
totally.
enough sleep, you wear yourself out. Um, when it comes to having a baby, what how do I phrase this? Obviously, at least the business crusher was before, and now this baby. I want you to talk a little bit about Jack, because I know based on your past history, Jack's basically, I mean, I don't want to say a miracle baby, but I know there was some
Yeah.
trials and tribulations before. What does Jack mean to you? And I guess if you could talk, because as I mentioned, there's a lot of women that listen to this podcast that have been through a lot of different struggles and different things.
Mm.
Talk a little bit about that, and I guess, and maybe this is why, and I don't know if I don't know if I'm way off, but with your stress levels changing, it allowed you to probably have a baby. And
Oh yeah.
I think that's so powerful too, that when we talk about our stress levels and how it affects our bodies, that's real shit right there. I mean, that was no baby before, and now all of a sudden you have a baby, and life has just
Yeah.
opened up. So talk a little bit about the situation, if you don't mind. Talk a little bit about the past, and that I would just love for my listeners to learn
Yeah.
a little bit about that as well.
Oh my gosh. No, of course. When you asked this, like my eyes tear up just because you asked, like, what does he mean? And it's, oh, it's so many levels. So yeah, absolutely. So we decided we wanted to have a baby. I don't know, 3, 4 years ago, something like that. And for like a year and a half, tried really hard and it didn't happen. And then we got pregnant. And then I remember like soon after I found out I was pregnant, I started to panic. And I started panicking, just being so worried I was going to have a miscarriage. And it was like this, it would grip my body. Like I remember just being in the shower and like, be like, take this anxiety away from me. Cause I am a believer. And I think miscarriage is such a personal thing. So this is just my own experience. I want to put that out there because I know so many families and men and women have been through this, but I knew enough about manifestation creation to know that if I was really stressed out and like clenching onto this, that it wasn't going to be helpful to the situation. So what I realized through that experience was I did not trust my body. It was like I'd finally gotten pregnant and now I was freaking out about whether I was going to be able to keep this pregnancy or not. Sure enough, 7 weeks in, we have a miscarriage. And I'm not, again, I am not saying that if you have a miscarriage that you did that. That's not it. For me personally, I know my body was in so much stress and I was gripping so hard and so anxious about not being able to keep the pregnancy that, I know it didn't help. So anyway, yeah, that took a lot of healing, like for anyone. And I know people have had multiple miscarriages. Like I talked to women who have had 4 or 5, and men are in that too, right?
Sure.
Like 4 or 5, like just, it's a lot. It's a lot. And it took me probably like 3 months to start to feel like myself again. And I remember at that point just saying, like, we know we want to have a baby. And maybe it's not meant to happen this way. And so what if we adopt? I started getting really like excited about adopting. And he's on board. He's so easy. So he's like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Why not? Right. Like I love him because I'm like let's do this. And I'll bring him some idea out of the blue. And he's like, okay, sure, why not? So he's go with the flow, which I need and my
Yeah.
man and I appreciate. But so we went down that path and we spent like 6 months getting the home study done and just getting everything completed. And I remember it was right before we were about to complete the home study, we found out we were pregnant. And you hear that story so many times, and it's actually how manifesting anything in your life works, whether it's a child, whether it's money, whether it's a relationship. It's like when we just relax about it and ease up, that's when that energy can flow through you. That's when you can receive. That's when you're open and receptive. And so that experience, when it happened, I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but it really it was a beautiful experience of learning to relax and receive and learning to also trust my body. Like that's a huge thing I'm passionate about now. For someone who came from like eating disorder background and having so much self-criticism, knowing now how incredible my body is and just trusting it through the whole process of having the baby. And now using it as a tool in business to make decisions, to help just, trust gut instinct. I teach the women I work with to do the same. It's amazing. It's so amazing when you learn to just kind of relax and trust.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I wanted to bring that up to you because being one of my BFFs, I know you've been through some crazy things and crazy businesses. But what I see now is again all these things, all these manifestations that you've thought about are all coming reality. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of women that listen to the show that are just on that cusp.
Yeah.
And they're on the edge and they're like, why not me? And then I think you worry about it so much that it almost never happens because you're constantly worrying about it and you're not really, you're like you said earlier, you're not manifesting the right thing. And that's what's wonderful about having you on the show. And if there's anybody watching or listening to this podcast, make sure that, if you're in this situation, reach out to Elyse. Elyse is the founder of She Sells, and she's just changing women's lives all over the place. Follow her on social media. She's crushing it there as well, which you're one of my favorite social media follows. Now I just love it. I love watching you dance. I'm like, look at this, like check this girl out. Taking your groove
Dancing
thing.
like a loon. I don't even get, you know what? Here's another thing. You got to drop the ego. And I know you're big on this too.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you got to drop the ego, and it's your ego will hold you back from everything you want. You're
Oh
so
yeah.
worried about what people think. Like yesterday, I did a video on like shamanic shaking, because when you're feeling, I woke up feeling so much anxiety from nowhere, and I was like, what the heck is this? Like, I'm not a super anxious person anymore, and so I've learned like sometimes our body's just addicted to it, and you got to let it out somehow. So
Sure.
I shake. So I did a shaking video on social media. It was fun, and everyone's like, I'm ready to shake now. And so we're going to do a
Absolutely.
shaking Zoom soon. It's just fun. Like you got to take it less seriously.
Well, I love it. Like I said, it's just all these things that you've done and that you've created. And another thing I love about you, and I know obviously this is my show, but I'm talking about you the entire time, which I love you. But it's just you're real as shit, and you've actually
Mm.
done all this, and that's what I love about having people on this show. That I've gone back to with this show is that before I used to just take people on the show all the time, and I've completely changed all that. I don't really let that many people come on the show anymore unless I know their story and know they're real. And that's what, again, I go back to the women watching the show or listening to the show. You've done it. You've gone through these things. And again, you're going to continue to go through some of the same struggles, but we have different tools that we can use now that you can help women get to the next level, to help when these things come up. How do I get over these? What do I do to get to the next level? How do I change my career? How do I make more money? It's not even all about that. How do I manifest the life that I deserve?
Yeah.
And that's why I think people need to reach out to you, because it's real. You've done
Mm.
it. It's like, I mean, we haven't gotten some of the hardcore shit that's happened to you in the past, but I mean, you've been through it, and you know how to get people to the other side. So
Mm.
that's why I love you. That's why I love you as a friend, but that's why I love having you on the show.
Thank you.
BFFs of life.
I love it. Let's get a tattoo.
Oh,
I
hey,
love
oh, wouldn't that be something? That would be so
it.
awesome, wouldn't it? At least every show, I always go through my 7 questions. I asked you these
Yeah.
7 questions about 2 years ago when you were on the show. I think it's probably been 2 years, maybe 3 years ago. I don't remember the last time you were on the show.
It's been a while.
We're going to go over it again tonight. For John Maxwell's book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. He comes up with 7 questions. And
Yeah.
question number 1 for Elyse Archer: what is the greatest lesson you have ever learned?
Oh, trust yourself. Always unequivocally trust yourself.
Talk about that.
Okay. I was like, do you want a brief answer?
Oh, no. I want you to lay it on the line. Give it to me, sister. It's all good.
Oh my gosh. It's my whole journey. I feel like it's like the lesson that I meant to teach in this life. Most of my life, I did not trust myself. This will be a whole other podcast, so we don't have to get into all of it. But yeah, I grew up in a household where I learned to really like suppress my emotions, suppress my instincts and intuition. I could tell there was stress between my parents, but there was never any open fighting. And so I think as a little girl, who's like sensitive and feels stuff, I wanted to keep my family intact. So I never like talked about it. And I learned to just stuff and suppress my instincts. And I love both my parents dearly. They're like both my best friends now, but sure enough, they went on to get a divorce later. And I just remember like that really set me up for a good 20 years of like not trusting myself, not trusting my body, ended up having the eating disorder, looked to men specifically for validation because I didn't feel like I got that the way I was looking for it growing up. And so I looked for approval and for what I could and should do from everyone else except for me. And that led to a lot of frustration, a lot of stagnation in terms of like money and wealth and just life and happiness. And when I finally kind of came to the realization of like, who am I waiting to give me permission to do what I actually feel is right? And why am I giving so much credit to somebody else just because they wrote a New York Times best-selling book or they've got a podcast that's bigger than mine? Do they actually know what's best for my life more than me?
Yeah,
It
right.
was like, no, not really. Like I can learn from other people, but I also have to honor my own feelings and instincts and look inward. I think for a lot of us, it's a journey of learning to look inward and trust rather than looking at everybody else. And you can tell by what's true for you, by what feels good and expansive in your body. That's when you know that you're onto what's right. And when you're onto what's not true for you, you feel constricted, anxious,
Yeah.
suffering, right? So that's a powerful lesson for me to learn and hopefully for anybody else who's listening too.
It's interesting. Sometimes what I've seen with people is that when they're on the right path, it's almost a self-sabotaging as well. It's almost like they don't feel like they deserve that, or it's not
Yeah.
doesn't feel right. And I always find that interesting too. And I've been guilty of it too. I like, when things start going really, really well for me, I start questioning, like, I don't even know why. I self-doubt myself. Am I on the right path? Well, of course I'm on the right path because this is the way I'm going, but it's almost too good to be true sometimes. And I don't
Mm.
believe it. It's It's something I struggle with still, but hey, we're getting
Mhm.
better every single day.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%.
Question number two is, what are you learning now?
What am I learning now? I'm learning to relax. I am learning to relax and it's great. And I'm learning that everything I want comes when I'm relaxed and receptive and calm and at ease. And that's from morning practice. That's from the Joe Dispenza stuff I told you about.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Like I'm kind of like I had a lot of limiting beliefs around I have to work so hard. Things have to be challenging. If I'm not grinding and hustling, it's not going to come to me. And no, it's actually the exact opposite.
Yeah.
When you're in the receptive mode and chill and relaxed and you follow, it's not that you don't take action, you take action, but there's a difference between inspired aligned action and busyness.
Yeah.
Inspired aligned action moves mountains and it does it quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing too with working on being calm and collective, it makes a huge difference as a parent too, because the way
Yeah.
the kids are mirrors. They're whatever you do, they're going to do, and that's why I'm very proud of my kids. And there's obviously you've met them several times. They're
Yeah.
just laid back, chill, calm,
Amazing.
cool, collective. Yeah, and I think that's just a direct reflection of your mindset. It's
Yes.
you are going to be what your kids are going to be what you are. And that's why it's
Mm.
so important that if you are in a situation, again, I go back to it. If you're a mother listening to this, or any kind of woman having young children, and you are stressed out, keep that in the back of your mind too, that you may not even understand it, but your kids are watching everything you do. And
Yeah.
again, that transfers over. So it's just so important to figure out exactly where you are in life. If you're not feeling good, if you're not happy with where you are, you got to reach out. Question number three for Elyse Archer is, how has failure shaped your life?
How has failure shaped my life? So I have my personal perspective is that there's no failure, there's just feedback. So I really use that to frame how I think about things. But I do think that we are given challenge. It's kind of like what we sign up for on this planet is we sign up for challenges, right? And every challenge teaches us, it just helps us become more of who we are. So I've had a lot of things that I thought were going to go great and didn't, or I knew that I wasn't really following my instincts and intuition and I moved forward on something anyway because I was feeling scared or
Sure.
yeah. And so I think every progressive piece of feedback, we'll say that has helped me become more of who I am. And that's what actually matters.
Yeah.
So I learned to be grateful. This is another thing I learned from one of my mentors when you're going through something that feels like this feels crappy to say, I'm thrilled this is happening because I'm thrilled this is happening because, and it helps you flip it and look at it from a different perspective of like, this is growing me. This is helping me be more resourceful. The other day I had a tough day with Jack and he was just not happy. I was momming by myself all day. Momming by yourself can be dangerous, as some women know, but I was doing that and he was just not happy that day. And I remember I put myself through that. It was like, I'm thrilled this is happening because clearly I'm meant to learn more patience. So I'm learning patience
Yeah.
today. It was just that flip. And then I felt so more at ease and relaxed. And what would you know, but he got happier too. So
Yeah.
how it
That's
works.
That's awesome, and I love
Yeah.
that. I'm thrilled this has happened, because I love that, because
Yeah.
there's so many things that happen throughout the day that it could be smaller, it could be bigger, but it's just a matter of taking that one step backwards, and self visualizing where you're going to be and how you're going to react to it, and it
Yeah.
makes a gigantic difference instead of just reacting all the time. That doesn't
Yeah.
help anything. Question number
Absolutely.
four for Elise Archer is, who do you know that I should know?
Oh, I was when you said these 7 questions, I was like, oh, I wonder who's going to ask this question again. I actually think it would be very cool for you to know my coach, Kayla. She has this brand called Mommy Millionaire, and it's a pretty dope brand. She's doing a lot. She's helping moms become millionaires, which is fun. That's what what
Yeah,
I'm all about. So yeah, I think you should know her.
is there a daddy millionaire?
Is there a daddy? Yeah, right. Well, you perhaps.
That's what I'm
I'm
saying.
just saying.
That's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I can't believe I just walked into this business. This is great.
Right?
Oh, Kayla,
I
we are
love
going to be connected
it.
so quickly. Dang, this is going to be
That's
great.
awesome.
Well, if you can connect me and Kayla, that would be great. I would love
I
to.
love it.
We can get her on the show, and we'll hype her up as well. So that'd be
That's
great.
awesome. That's
Uh,
awesome.
Question number five is, what have you read that I should read?
What you should read. Oh, you've probably read. Oh man, I'm trying to think of what I have read recently. I'll tell you if you're into the prosperity and abundance stuff, which I know you are, I'm really enjoying the book series by Catherine Ponder, and she does like millionaires. It's like millionaires of the Bible, and my spiritual beliefs have expanded a lot over the years, so I'm more kind of I like to explore all the different paths to God.
Oh,
But
yeah.
this particular book series is really fascinating because she digs into like prosperity laws and how did just different people you read about in the Bible use prosperity laws and how you can apply it to your own life. And it's all these like cool stories and anecdotes of people just literally like creating financial miracles out of nowhere. And that kind of stuff is so fun to me. So, and she talks about healing too, like physical healing, which I'm also like, I'm healing skin cancer right now. And so I love her stuff because I'm a big believer that change comes from the inside out. And so it helps just continue to up level like your power. And Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I didn't think of that one right off the bat, but definitely read that. It's
I'll
incredible.
read that one next.
Read that one next. It'll blow your
You
mind.
said Becoming Supernatural?
Becoming Supernatural. And he's got a great series on Gaia called Rewired. And he's got a bunch of YouTube interviews. Like if you just go YouTube him, but it's phenomenal. It's so fascinating.
All right. Yeah, I'll read that one next. I'm finishing up Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Great book. I'm just about done with that one. So yeah, I'll knock out Joe next. Question number 6 is, what have you done that I should do?
Done that you should do. I would say some of these meditations. Actually, no, let me change. Shamanic shaking. If you have not done shamanic shaking, I want to invite you to do it.
Shamanic shaking. Okay.
And I'm guessing you have not.
I have not. No.
No. So it's real complicated. You go get a playlist on Spotify. You just like Google or search like shamanic shaking music. And you just your body will tell you what to do. And you shake and you dance and you scream and you punch things. And it's an amazing cathartic release. It's really freaking good.
All right.
Yeah.
That would be getting out of my comfort zone for sure.
100%, which means it's good for you.
Absolutely. 100%. I will absolutely do that. Elyse, last question is, how can I add value to you?
Oh my gosh, my friend. I so appreciate that. This, it actually makes me like super emotional and just tear up, like getting to have this conversation with you. And I think like how much we've both grown and just seeing like what you've done and what you've created and writing your book and the amazing dad that you are and how you're inspiring so many people, and just to hear your affirmation as well of the journey I've had. Like this has been like soul enriching. So thank you.
Well, I love you to death. You know that. And we don't talk nearly enough. So we need to increase the amount of times that we talk for sure.
I love that.
I need to get down to Atlanta for sure. That's got to happen. We talked about that for freaking 3 years. I got to do that. I got to come out and hang out with my buddy Jay Bird too. So
yeah,
that'd be awesome.
It's Jay. Well, I'd say it's Jay squared down here, but it'll be Jay cubed when you come down. So we'll have Jeremy,
absolutely.
Jason, and Jack. So that's gonna be epic. You need to come down and just like, oh my gosh, he needs to meet his Uncle Jeremy.
100%.
Some good influence in his
life.
I'm
so upset that you didn't name him Jeremy. I'm still a little upset about that, but that's okay. That's okay.
Middle name battles. Or next one or whatever.
Yeah, there we go. Absolutely. Elyse, tell the universe where they could find you.
So since the universe is listening, yes, I love that. I love that. Yeah. So I'm at Elyse Archer on all social, and my podcast, obviously your people who are listening are podcast listeners. So what I hear, an average podcast listener listens to 7. And so I think you've made the most amazing choice listening to Jeremy's. And then I would be honored to be also one of the 7. You can check out She Sells Radio. If this resonated with you, there's a lot more good stuff like this. So yeah, thank you.
Well, you're the bomb. Like I said, I love you to death. I love Jason to death. I love Jack to death. Never met Jack, but I love him to death. And I'm just really honored and thankful that you came on the show. It's every time I talk to you, I just think to myself that I need to talk to you more. And it's not about like 45-minute conversations, but even a 5-minute conversation I think is important now and then. So I will be responsible for sure to reach out to you. I mean, at least once a month, just to stop out and say hi. Holler at your boy. It'd be great.
I love that. I love
good
that.
To see
Thank
you
so much. Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. Everybody out there, follow Elyse for sure. And again, check her website out. Check her on social media. She's a great follow. Share her stuff. Like it. Let her know that you're out there. If you listen to this episode, send her an email. Say, hey, I listened to your episode. Love it. All that good stuff. So we know that, or she knows we're listening. But like I said, hey, I just love having Elyse on my show. I can't wait to do it again. For everybody out there around the world, I say it on every single episode, you've got greatness within. Like always, this is The Positive Side.